What is your take on what you saw on debate night?
It was a really bad night for Joe Biden. He actually fed into the negative narratives that many people had about him, about his age, about his ability to even be a strong leader of the country with the world watching. So it was very sad. On the other hand, I thought that Donald Trump, because they decided, I believe, that the deck was supposed to be stacked against Donald Trump. Would he be able to perform in a debate without an audience? Would he be able to perform just freestyling, something that was actually much more structured? Well, Donald Trump was able to do that. Joe Biden, on the other hand, was not able to do that. And I think that that's what people saw. Donald Trump gave a very strong performance, really distinguished himself on things like immigration. I appreciate the fact that he had a very solid answer on abortion, that he actually endorses abortion in the case of rape, incest, or even the life of the mother. I thought that Donald Trump was very strong on those points, and even distinguishing himself from Joe Biden on some of the failures, like Afghanistan, what we're experiencing now in this war between Russia and Ukraine, but also the Israel-Hamas war. So I thought it was a good night for Donald Trump. Joe Biden, not so much.
Okay, Ari, back over to you. We do want to say it doesn't sound like President Biden has any immediate intention of stepping down. In less than 24 hours after that debate, he took the stage at the rally in Raleigh with so much more energy. People were saying, where was this man the night before? It doesn't sound like you're convinced that he just had one bad night. He was in the grips of a terrible cold. So let me ask you, when you do look at the Democratic bench, who do you think has the most realistic chance of going head-to-head with Trump and winning in November?
So there is an issue of name recognition, but then there is legality. President Biden has been elected by delegates through, in the primaries, people have selected him, and these delegates are going to the convention. He has to release those delegates. That's legal issue number one. Legal issue number two, there's about $177 million in the Biden-Harris war chest and more to come. If anybody else besides Kamala Harris becomes the nominee, you can't just transfer that money to that person. It's going to be the FEC rules for campaign finance are pretty complex. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to give all this money now to Gavin Newsom. Having said that, it's not clear if Vice President Harris has the best chance of beating Trump or winning the nomination. Governor Gavin Newsom, he's done pretty well in California. Governor Whitmer, Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio. He comes from a pretty good, Midwestern state. I mean, there are people. We got to get them, right now we got to get them ready. We got to prep them. We got to bring them out. People got to get to know them. Trump is by far the most recognized name next to Biden. You got Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Not a whole lot of people know Newsom, let alone Whitmer and Sherrod Brown and so on and so forth.
I appreciate that. We are almost out of time, but I want to get Melik's voice back in here on this quickly because former President Trump notably spoke a multitude of lies on that debate stage. NewsNation finding Trump made more than 30 false claims, some of those being no wars under Trump, the cost of food inflation being more than what it is abortion, even after childbirth. In your eyes, is this an issue for the person seeking our highest office? Will this be an issue for voters?
No, I don't think it would be at all. All of these things about Donald Trump are already baked in the cake. The negatives about Donald Trump, which is why I said that he outperformed the debate, because there were so many negatives stacked against him. The fact that now the narrative is that Donald Trump fared poorly because Donald Trump lied. If you believe that Donald Trump is a liar, your mind wasn't changed in that very debate. Joe Biden, of course, told a number of other lies, but they don't get as amplified as what we're seeing with Donald Trump. But at the end of the day, I don't think that people care about lies. They care about were they better off under Donald Trump? And I think at least if you listen to the polls, that seems to be a yes.
Okay, Melik Abdul, Ari Aramesh, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.